Christ by highest heaven adored, Christ the everlasting Lord, late in time behold him come, offspring of the Virgin's womb. Veiled in flesh the Godhead see, hail the incarnate deity, pleased in human form to dwell, Jesus, our Emmanuel.
Well, welcome everyone. This is the last video of its kind for 2020 and perhaps for a long time. As members of the senior leadership team of the diocese, we wanted to get together to reflect a little bit on 2020 and what we're thinking about for Christmas, and to share with you a verse of our favourite Christmas carol as a Christmas reflection. Rod Bowers not able to be part of this conversation today as he's on his way to a speaking engagement in Canberra. Welcome everyone. I might open in prayer. God of grace, mercy and love, we give you thanks and praise for your gift to the cosmos of Jesus Christ, your Son. We thank you that in him we find fullness of life, forgiveness of our sins and hope for eternity. We pray that as we approach Christmas, you might give us a fresh gift of understanding him anew in our lives, that each of us may be inspired by this faith and share it in all the world. We pray this in his most precious name. Amen. Well, what are you going to be talking about on Christmas Day or in your sermons heading towards Christmas Day? The phrase that's grabbed my attention this year and I've been using in school speech days is the message of the angels, peace on earth and goodwill among all people. And for me, the sense of goodwill that we've seen from people across the globe and in our communities during COVID-19, I think is a reflection of the goodwill that the angels were announcing as they heralded Jesus's birth. A reminder that when we love one another in the way that God loved us, communities are transformed. So peace on earth, goodwill among all people is what I'm going to be talking about. I have been talking about it, and the bit that I see is that it sort of connects with people, because while the Christian story of Jesus's birth and life, death and resurrection sometimes is hard to take on board, for people the idea of a common humanity filled with goodwill and grace towards people makes a lot of difference. So that's my message this year. Who wants to go next?
The thing that's been rattling around in my brains is how life is present in disruption, and how nobody particularly goes looking for disruption, but we have all these stories that point us at Christmas that are disruption stories, beginning with Zechariah, who doesn't sort of like the disruption that comes to him and gets struck dumb because the way the world's meant to go gets messed up for him, in contrast with Mary, who goes, well, this is not how I thought it was going to be, but all right, let's go with it and see how it goes. And so there's a whole bunch of disruptions that happen in our texts that go with Christmas, and then we get the opportunity to think about disruption and how it's welcome and unwelcome, and how there are decisions to make about whether there's light and life in there. And it's all a bit raw and uncooked, but that's the kind of thinking that's going on in my head, and teasing around with that, I think will land in places that are hopefully a bit resonant. So that's where I'm at.
Now, it's a bit unfair to people to ask them about their Christmas sermon before we've done Advent 4, but that's how it goes sometimes. And in fairness, you did have an hour and a half to think about it.
Those two things went through my head when I saw your message. I'm still thinking about Advent 4. But I did think about Christmas. The message of Christmas is the God who comes to us into our lives as they are and comes to us in unexpected ways. And that's the story of the love and the grace of God. And I've been thinking about what that means for us in this year, given what it's been. And I was just looking at some material, and I read this quote that's just going around in my head at the moment. Jesus comes into our midst silently and invisibly. The virus has also come into our midst silently and invisibly. Yet Jesus comes to heal and teach, not to divide us, while a virus has crept between us, making us sick and afraid. And so I'm just thinking about the message of Christmas, of the God who draws us back together, and that's floating around in my head at the moment.
I'd like to take you to the Sunday after Christmas, where in our church we're going to focus on the feast in our Anglican lectionary of Holy Innocents. And my reason for doing that is straight after Christmas. It's helpful to remember that Jesus, the Son of God, who came at Christmas, actually immediately after his birth becomes a refugee. And I think that has a lot to say to us in our present world, where being refugee has become such a big part of our world. And to remember that, you know, and I think it's interesting about expectations in a way. You would never expect that a person who began life as a refugee in order to be rescued from a slaughter by a horrible tyrant, and then actually when he comes back into Israel, the town he ends up in Nazareth is a slum town, and you would never expect that person could be God's son sent to save us. And yet that was how our Lord and Saviour came. And so that will be my focus on the Sunday after Christmas here out at All Saints in You.
And I'm thinking about light and things that are hidden being revealed. It strikes me every time I drive into the cathedral grounds, the doors of the cathedral are closed. And prior to the COVID lockdown, they were never closed. And I think in the Australian landscape, light is such a powerful image. And I'm thinking about how in the week leading up to Christmas, Christmas Eve, the doors of the cathedral will be open and there'll be light streaming out, and we'll have the invitation to rediscover Jesus, who hasn't been hidden from us, but this sense of Christ with us, the light being revealed. There's a beautiful R.S. Thomas poem which talks about Jesus going to a world which is full of challenge and what Bishop Charlie said, disruption. And I think that's the message we need to hear again this Christmas. Light coming to a world which so often has felt dark.
Not in that poor lowly stable, with the oxen standing by, we shall see him, but in heaven, set at God's right hand on high, when his children gather round, bright like stars, with glory crowned. Merry Christmas.
Is from the Prologue of John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world knew him not. He came to his own home, and his own people received him not. But to all who received him, who believed on his name, he has given power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of a man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. We have beheld his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father. And from his fullness have we all received, and grace upon grace.
Sing, choirs of angels, Sing in exultation, sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, glory in the highest. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him. Christ the Lord.
I saw a tweet this morning from someone saying, please don't give me a 2020 montage. I want to forget it. And there is lots of grim stories throughout this year. But I thought it might be helpful to focus on some of the silver linings that have come out for us, and to identify those things, those gifts, those precious pearls that we might take into future years as a result of the COVID-19 experience. Two come to mind for me. The first is that through the need to reorganise some of our diocesan life, we've seen a releasing of a whole lot of giftedness of people with skills and talents which they bring to the table to help the vision, mission, values and activities of the diocese keep on going and be sustained over a long period of time. And it's just wonderful to be in rooms seeing those gifts released in new and fresh ways. So that's one of the things that I really rejoice in seeing, and think we will continue to benefit from over a number of years. The other one is this technology. Simply, there would have been a time when to do this piece of work together and to record it, we would have had different cameras around, we would have spent ages working on it. Yet we can get on to a Zoom chat, we can have a video recording, we'll be able to piece it together. I accept it's not perfect production values by any stretch of the imagination, but we're able to tell something of our story and share our relationship. And this technology is making a huge difference for us. I could say many other things, but you'd shoot me because you'd say, well, hang on, where are ours? So what are the silver linings that you're finding out of 2020 that you might want to take into 2021 and beyond?
I've got two as well, so following your lead. When you first invited me to think about silver linings, I thought of dragonflies. In the height of the COVID lockdown, when it was terribly hard and we couldn't gather together in our church buildings, the grounds of the cathedral were filled with so many birds and insects, and particularly around the deanery, there were just so many dragonflies, and I had time to stop and look at them. And it was something beautiful in a hard time, just reminding me of the glory of creation, and that actually this time was a gift. The other thing is through the online presence that the cathedral has been able to offer with clergy throughout the diocese, to be aware of the ways we've connected with people, not just throughout the diocese, but throughout the world, and to hear how that ministry has been appreciated. It's something that we'd thought about doing, but COVID gave us the impetus to actually step into the space. And that has been a great blessing.
Terrific.
Silver linings, I think, are firstly the worship of the people of God. We weren't able to worship in our churches, which was such a shock, really. And yet, as I spoke to people, I heard stories of people worshipping in new ways and valuing worship in whichever way it came. So online worship, with worship screened to congregations, small groups gathering online, clergy delivering prayer books to every person in their parish so they could say their prayers at home. I was really inspired by the way people worshipped and provided for and supported one another in worship. The other one is the way people willingly came together and understood their need to work together more. That the intensity of the year has shown us where we're not so strong, and that people have been ready to reach out to their neighbours and work together. And there's work to do on some of the foundational stuff, but that's been really exciting to be part of with some parishes.
The spontaneity of the communication of the low production values thing has been a real gift in the conversations with all the people across the diocese, because it has made it normal to have a sort of immediacy about some of these kinds of contacts. So even today, this conversation's a bit immediate with a bit of preparation, and it kind of works well in time. It happens nicely in time, and so that's the flow from this to that to that to that, and that's been okay. I mean, there've been fraught and frenetic bits of that too that I haven't enjoyed so much, but that's had a value, being able to have those kinds of conversations and contacts with bunches of people. So that's a kind of external silver lining. And internally, a couple of members of this household where this is happening here today, and everybody's being politely quiet on day one, morning one of school holidays, I have to tell you, in this hour. But a couple of members of this household have come into their own this year in ways I don't think they might have had the same opportunity to do. Have found pieces of themselves and giftedness in themselves, and been able to give that out into the worlds they live in ways that they might not have otherwise. And seeing that close at hand has made me look for it everywhere in ways that I might not have before, looking for what giftedness is emerging on the edges of things. So that's been a silver lining. So I celebrate that, and it's pulled me up short and made me, I hope, a little bit more inward than outward. So that's been a thing.
For me, it's been that in the midst of the lockdown, and we were so blessed to have the least lockdown you can have when you're having a lockdown in some ways in Newcastle. But what I'll call the rediscovering of the local, that people were safely moving around this community in a beautiful way. So I'm blessed to have a study that looks out on the street, looking the other way from this camera, so to speak. And there was quite heavy traffic at times, COVID safe, but of family units of different shapes and forms walking along the streets. Some dogs who were suggesting that they were being overwalked by the look of them as they came along the street. But even personally, we stopped going to big supermarkets and would simply walk up to the IGA in New Lambton and purchase what was needed at the occasion. And it's possibly not as efficient, but there was something very healthy about that, in a way that was, for me at least, a silver lining. And occasionally you would pass people in the street who you knew, who were members of the church, who were not members of the church, but there was a kind of sense of community that was recovered, because we couldn't all be jetting or driving or training or busing all over the world. And so we kind of rediscovered that. We were blessed to go to a street 75th birthday party where the rule was you had to stay at your front gate, but we still wished someone in our street a happy 75th birthday party, and others all came to their front gate to do the same with a drink to wish this person a happy 75th birthday party. And it was a beautiful evening. I think this was at 5 o'clock. There was no traffic. It was rediscovering the local. There were the Anzac Day celebrations, that Anzac Day could happen in a COVID safe way, and we could mark that occasion in our nation without leaving your property. And so rediscovering the local, I think, was a silver lining in the midst of lockdown, which I'm very thankful for.
there's so many wonderful pieces in that. You know, we found people's resilience and adaptability. So within short periods of time, the Anglicans were worshipping differently, offering spiritual and pastoral care differently, finding ways of engaging their communities differently. Got on board with technologies in ways that "you're muted" has become a familiar phrase in Anglican churches, as well as sometimes "I wish you were muted." No, I shouldn't. You know, we've had so many different things which are encouraging in terms of what we might be able to take from here and help build our church community and our local community. Each of you have been a very important part of that, as have others who aren't around this screen today. Across the diocese, we're blessed with people who've been prepared to lead, prepared to encourage, prepared to build, and we've made a difference to the communities around. We've part of trying to help human flourishing in the shape that Jesus wants us to do and to offer. So thank you each for your part in it all.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Round yon Virgin Mother and Child, holy infant so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace.